This is Deacon Chuck Kelly for WQPH 89.3 FM, Catholic Radio, serving Shirley, Fitchburg, and the world. And this evening's show, we have some special guests. We have Kim and Travis LeBlanc. I said that right? Okay, good. We're off to a good start. And Diane Kelly.
Yes,
my
thank
wife.
you, Deacon. Thank
Yes,
you for having me.
Diane, you and I just finished the show. We were talking about the diaconate, basically our story. One of the things that Diane and I were talking about was our journey as a couple. You know, what is it how do we respond to our vocations? You know, and the interesting thing with the diaconate, that it's kind of a vocation within a vocation. You're just beginning your vocation as a married couple.
Yeah.
It's I've known you, Kim, for a number of years. You actually have been a parishioner at St. John the Evangelist for what, your whole life?
Since second grade. Yeah. And that's very specifically second grade. I remember my mother grew up in Fitchburg, my father in Leominster. My mom was sort of in Leominster as well. And they were going to St. Camillus in Fitchburg. And when my mom and dad realized what school district they were going to be having their children in, my mom said to me, it's important for you guys to know who, the kids that you're going to be going to school with. They made the decision that we were going to move with another family that we knew at St. Camillus and start going to St. John so that we could go through religious education with. And
they still live here in Ashby.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. And we are recording this in your home. Thank you for inviting us. The program's called the Deacon's Table, but it's not the Deacon's Table. It's your table.
Maybe the future Deacon's Table.
Maybe the future Deacon's Table. You never know.
Yes.
And so again, so welcome Kim and Travis to your own home. To the Deacon's Table.
Thank you.
We've known each other for a number of years. And Travis, you and I serve together at St. John's. You serve as acolyte. As we get into the story, really your story, maybe just talk a little bit about your Catholic history. Kim, of course, you second grade, you really didn't have much choice, right? You were just, okay, I'm here and they're bringing me to church. I really can't do anything about that. Fast forward for both of you, how was that Catholic upbringing? How was that lived out?
For me, being Catholic was always part of our lives. My father was always, both my father and my mother were very active in the church from early on. And so it was, we went through the altar serving from the time we were in fourth grade until we were teenagers. There were a lot more of youth at the time that were involved in the church, where we were able to altar serve with them. And we did, trips to Canby Lake Park. We were going back and forth to...
Who was the pastor when you started doing that work?
Father Clyde was the priest at the time.
Father Clyde Chetwin.
Yeah. And then it wasn't... Then we went through the brief period where it was Father Sean Allen. Mm-hmm. But for the most of the youth, it was with Father Clyde that I can remember between him and Father Bill McKenzie. There was a very active youth group. So we were always hanging out together. We were doing weekends together. We always the hall was like our second life. We were always there hanging out with the other younger kids, and from that point it was natural. We had priests in the family. My uncle was a priest, and so he was always coming to visit at odd times, and there was never a time where there wasn't somebody or doing something Catholic. It wasn't really until college where I felt like there was no one around to kind of direct me as to what I was supposed to do.
It was like a little liberated as a lot of college students find themselves. Now, where did you go to school?
I went to UMass Dartmouth.
Okay.
And so when it was like no longer felt commonplace in a way.
Sure. Where
when I got there, no one was telling me that we were going to Mass on Sunday, even though I knew I was going. It was just, there was no one, it wasn't like I was going in a group. So then I had to befriend people on campus that were also Catholic so I could even figure out where to go to Mass or what to do. And I was lucky that my sister was a senior and kept me involved with the sisters there, and then, continued helping sister throughout my college career. So it that's where it all started.
So you were able to continue your Catholic faith. It wasn't really a point where like now I'm liberated and I don't have to go.
No,
So
because
you
it felt second nature. It helped to have my sister there
Sure.
in her senior year, to be there
Right.
with me in my freshman year. But
We did a show on, Catholic homeschool, and, even through the best efforts of the best parents with all of the education and training and coaching and striving to keep this young mind, focused on their faith and being and staying a practicing Catholic. They go to college and that's it, and even in some ways Catholic colleges. So I give a lot of credit to you for sticking with it.
no, and second nature. It just never felt like it was never difficult. I just did it because I knew it was what I was supposed to do. Continue the faith going
Do you think
forward.
your involvement as an altar server, when you were very young, how did that influence your continuance in the faith, or did it?
I think it made being Catholic fun. I mean, from that time, I mean, it helped to have other kids that were doing it too.
Right.
So it wasn't like we were going in and, it was just us that were serving or something like
Sure.
that. There were, 20, 30 other kids that were going.
It was normalized.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It just, and they made it fun, and we were always doing activities together, and there was never
Sure.
a time we were apart. I remember just spending a lot of time.
Was Chris Voss involved with that?
Yes, Chris Voss was Chris Voss, and there was the Brie family was very involved at the time too.
Okay.
Between their kids were all our ages, so like the Brie family, the Best family,
Sure.
kids that we knew growing up, we were all
Part of your parish family.
exactly,
really.
yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
still are.
Sure.
Even now to an extent, it just became a natural thing that even though once college happened, it was just like, okay, I just have to find a new group of people that want to
Sure.
do the same things I do. And it was also the case that I really only gravitated towards people that shared similar values.
Sure.
So, like...
something that's going to, steel sharpens steel, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
going to want to hang out with and be with those who are like-minded. And I want to get back to that because there was a point, of course, where there was some time, and then you met this guy named Travis. between then,
Yeah.
we'll jump back into that. But so Travis, you serve as an acolyte at doing this like your whole life. I mean, you seem to. And I know that people will come up to you and say, "Wow, are you a seminarian?" Because you're so crisp, and I know that you're quick to say, "No, I'm married." I mean, what was your early church life like?
Great question. So, I mean, like him, I was raised in the faith, so my parents brought us to church, every Sunday. I mean, when I was little, I was obviously playing on my Matchbox cars in the pew, but when you're little, you're not taking in as much as you and paying attention, I think, as much as you do as an older person.
Mm-hmm.
But in 6th grade, I wanted to be an altar server. So we actually had a really large group of altar servers.
And what parish was this at?
This was at St. Joseph's, or Our Lady of Grace in Pepperell.
Oh, okay.
It was Father Butler, or Father Bob as we called him, when I was first there. And there was a sister that was like assigned to the parish.
Okay.
Super nice lady. And so just started serving. I was the young kid when I first started it. It was just a way to be more involved with the Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I was the young kid doing it and went through senior year, feeling my senior year of high school.
Wow.
By then, I was the senior server,
Right.
training all the new kids.
Now, that's interesting because, particularly for the men that I've seen, the young men, when they get into the high school age, that's when you start, losing them. We saw that in scouts as well. Our scout master used to say it was either sports, a car, or a girl, and that would just take them away from the scouting program or altar serving or even peer pressure at some point. But so you stayed strong through this.
I think when I was
through high school,
probably like a sophomore, junior, I felt a little bit of peer pressure just because you see somebody new from high school or from school, you're like, oh, I hope they don't recognize me or something because they'll tease me the next day. But honestly, it never happened. I would run into somebody, they just shrug it off. And a lot of the times you don't pay attention to if you're in the pew. as a younger person, you're not paying attention to who's
Well, if they
winning
see
this,
you,
that.
they were at church too.
Yeah. So,
Exactly. So it's not like when
was-
they get to tease you for being in church.
Yeah.
Like, well,
So,
not at all.
I mean, I was in Scouts too.
Sure.
So I got
okay.
I got the two, and Scouting as a whole is a Christian organization, not necessarily Catholic, but it still has that relative faith background to an extent.
Yeah, I think it depends on the sponsoring,
Yeah.
unit, whoever's sponsoring the troops. But you're right; it's persons of goodwill.
Mhm.
You know?
And then, so I pretty much stopped after I graduated high school. Even though I commuted to college, I just, okay, well, finished my senior year. I'm going to take a break from it.
Mm-hmm.
And through college, I kept going because I lived at home.
And so where did you go to school?
UMass Lowell. So we're the lesser UMass.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the other UMass.
And
much bigger.
Much bigger, yeah.
there wasn't really a Catholic presence, or I didn't know of any kind of Catholic group, especially young men's group. So I was going to church, but I really wasn't in my importance. So it hadn't hit that part of my life where this is really an important thing to me. It was I'm going to go to church because my parents are going. So, and I still went every Sunday, but I think it was after I graduated high school, or college rather, that I started to take a real interest in my faith, and it became much more important to me. Knowing, okay, well, in high school and college, you're like, oh, whatever, I'll take care of this later. And then you graduate and the real world hits, and you start, you start thinking about, okay, I need to grow up now. I need to, take on the world. And I think it's when I just realized how important faith is. Unfortunately, my group of friends wasn't really that Catholic group of friends. I had a girlfriend that we went to church somewhat regularly together, but
So you've graduated college. You probably have a job by this point.
Yeah.
What were you doing for work?
So when I first graduated, I was working at a temp job.
You weren't making Matchbox cars.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it might have come back.
So I was working 2 jobs, pretty much 7 days a week for a year, and then after that, I was like, okay, I never quit a job before, but I actually quit my full-time job, and I went to work at my retail job full-time. And then I think it was 2018, maybe 2017, when, Father Jeremy, because we had started going to St. John's.
Now, when you say we started going to St. John's,
my parents, me and my parents.
So you were done. You were working, but you were living at home.
Yep.
You'd be going to St. John's, and so at that point, Kim, you're done with college.
Yeah.
You're working.
Yeah. Just before I had met Travis, I was working at a Bank of New York Mellon in Marlborough.
Mm-hmm.
So I was commuting every day. It was 14.
Oh, that wonderful trip down 495.
Yes.
Yeah,
and it was like 2 hour. I'd be lucky if I could drive.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
Forget college, but if you can keep your faith when you're on 495, you're doing good.
I mean, it was like an hour and 15 minutes on a good day.
Yeah.
Unless it was a holiday, and then I could speed past there in 50 minutes.
Right.
So every day it was like 2 hours of commuting. I was like, the rosary used to get me to work every day so that I didn't kill someone on the road. And I worked there for 3 years. And then I met him at the tail end of that. It was the 3rd year that I had been there.
So what was your first meeting? I mean, I guess that was... So you're at home, you're going to St. John's, you're living at home, you're going to St. John's. Did you meet at St. John's, or did you...
I think
technically,
yes. Did you... Yeah, okay.
Technically, yes.
It all started with when Father Jeremy texted me saying, hey, come by the rectory. I want you to start this young adults group.
Okay, this is Father Jeremy St. Martin, who was the
Yes.
pastor of St. John the Evangelist in Townsend at that time. So, so he calls you as a member of the parish, young person. He says, we're starting a young adult group.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, I want you to head it.
Yeah.
And he had talked to me about it prior to that. He was interested in starting a young adult group, and I was like,
Oh, so you talked to
young
both
adults?
of you split separately.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
interesting.
So,
I see a plan coming together.
So, I had been talking to my sister a couple of times, and on several different occasions, she had said to me, there's this kid at church, Travis. She's like, we went to school together. He's a really nice guy. You should really
Which sister was this?
Katie. You should really consider maybe asking him out or something sometime. Like, yeah, okay, when? We don't go to the 10:30 mass. At the time, we were going to the 7:30 mass
Yeah,
because
the 10:30 people don't talk to the 7:30.
they
people.
don't.
Yeah,
well, and it's like you needed. I'm not just gonna walk up, ask him out. I'm just not that type of person. I don't even know who he is. I've never even talked to this kid before. So I just brushed it off a few times. Like, whatever, Katie. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. Then when we learned about that father wanted to start a young adult group, I said, okay, fine, whatever, we'll just show up. So we showed up at St. John's one day and we met at the rectory, and he was actually talking to you in the parking lot. Travis was talking to you in the parking lot.
Okay.
And I just said, hi, how are you? I said, don't mind me, I'm just here for a meeting. Come to find out Travis was here for the meeting as well. And
by golly.
Yeah. And he was, at the time, he was working at Fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For just about the same amount of time. He was going on 3 years there as well. And I was working at BNY at the time, so we kind of had that connection, working at banks, blah, blah, blah.
Sure, yeah.
And so after that meeting, I said, oh, he's kind of cute. Maybe I will, see if we can talk or whatever. So we went on. We went online, I think it was Facebook. We friended each other on Facebook, and I messaged you probably 3 hours or something like that night. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, well, let's go take a walk, I said.
Because you were training for the...
I was getting ready for the Auriesville pilgrimage.
What?
The Auriesville pilgrimage that I do with St. Anne's in Still River.
Okay.
So I had been waiting to do this pilgrimage, and it was I think that one was the second time, second pilgrimage I had done with them. And so I had Auriesville pilgrimage. So you start...
And that's in New York.
Yeah, so you start in Lake George, New York, and it's 62 miles to Auriesville, New York. It ends at
North American.
Was it the North American
yes,
Shrine?
Shrine of the North American Martyrs, right?
Yeah, we just had the feast of Kateri Tekakwitha, right?
Correct.
So
yes.
Wonderful.
So
wow, that's quite a pilgrimage. How long did, just as an aside, how long does that take to do?
3 days. It's over 3 days.
Okay, so you were getting ready to go on this pilgrimage. Mm-hmm. You meet this guy in the church parking lot.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'll Facebook him. You decide to go for a walk. Fine. Okay. I know stories. Like, I know that when Diane, you and I had our first date at McDonald's. No, right, yeah. So I say McDonald's. She says Brigham. Diane.
I remember having ice cream.
Diane had an ice cream. But I remember it because of what I said to her. You say some funny things when you're... Well, I think I was 16 at the time. Diane, how old were you?
We're not going to go there.
Anyway, stories differ. That's my point. And so your version. So you pull up into the parking lot. You and I are talking in the parking lot at St. John's.
Yeah.
And take it from there. What was your experience?
I think I know we definitely hit it off right off the bat. Just nothing work was we both do call center jobs. Oh, don't they stink? Mm-hmm. And they
so you met in the meeting, right?
Yeah,
so you're talking at the meeting.
We were the two at the church. Father had a couple other girls.
Well, Chris and Julie were both there.
Maybe I think I may have forced Chris and Jillian to come because I didn't want it to just be the two of us, but we ended up in the kitchen. I think talking,
just sitting at the table in the rectory, and we just hit it off right off the bat.
I don't think we stopped talking from that moment on.
No, we pretty much chatted every day.
We were dating basically every day.
2 days later, pretty sure 2 days later, we had our first date.
So I consider the first date the day we went out on a walk.
That me too.
Okay, so
where was this? So
actually, we ended up going right around the center of town through.
So we parked at the high school at North Middlesex in Townsend, and we walked all the way up the hill behind the high school. So we walked down there. And realized it took us out to the 119. So we can't walk down 119. So came back at Proctor and then just went back to the high school. Mm-hmm. Kim was like, "Oh, do you want to go get a beer?" Or sorry, do you want to go get?
No, that's right. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah,
so
sure.
In my defense, I had had a myriad of bad dates.
Okay.
Because I was doing online dating.
Okay.
And it was terrible date after terrible date.
Really?
And then just because I was, how else do you meet people these days?
Sure. Yeah, it's hard.
So Kim's like, oh, do you want to go get a beer? And I was like, well, I should probably head home or something. And I don't know. I was being weird, and Kim will attest to this every time we tell the story.
So from there, I was like, oh, okay. And then I started to walk away. He said, you know what? No, let's go get a beer. Yeah, let's go get a beer. So then we went over and we sat outside.
Is this because you didn't want it to end up like these other dates?
Yeah.
Is that, pretty much you were scared that it was going to become the next bad date?
Just blow up in my face like the others had.
So. He was waiting for it to go bad, I think. And, and I had a similar experience. Yeah. At the time when we were going to church, there weren't a lot of young adults. No, and I think, now I think there's obviously we have a very tight knit group of people that go to St. John's that are young adults. Sure. At the time we didn't really know. There were no eligible bachelors at St. John's. It just wasn't a thing. And I was, the few that were too young, or the opposite. They were too old and kind of weird. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't working. So, and it was, what mass are you going to? I was going to the 7:30 with, mostly older people.
Right.
Because that was the one that worked for me. Sure. And so I never saw people that were my age, which usually were going to the 10:30 apparently. And so, I decided that I was going to try to look elsewhere. So I was doing similar. I tried Catholic Match, which again has a very specific group of people that are kind of, I don't know, they all know each other kind of a thing. So I didn't really, and a lot of them were too far away. Yeah. So I was going to dates in Vermont. I was going to dates in random, I had to go all the way to Boston to there. And then we turned around and it was like, okay, well, where can we go? Where can I go to meet somebody? So when it started going well, I was like, oh, well, then why would we stop talking? Why wouldn't we just go, to the next, do something else together or whatever? And so I was kind of surprised when he said no. And I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, we did end up sitting outside and
it was honestly
French
really
fries.
Nice. And there was some a outside band playing or something. Mm-hmm. So it was a beautiful night, mid-September-ish. Mm-hmm. We honestly just sat outside, chatted the whole night. Mm-hmm. I escorted you back to your vehicle. Mm-hmm.
You sound like a cop. So, I escorted her back to her vehicle. Yeah, get in your car, ma'am. We're done. This date's over. Yeah, go ahead.
But then, pretty much the next day, we just started hanging out all the time. Actually, the first time I had met your parents, it was a Saturday mass that we gone to. The two of us were both lecturing at the time, and which was something else I think that we clicked on, or we kind of had in common. Mm-hmm. So we just started. Mary Best would schedule us at the same.
Oh yeah, how convenient! Yeah. It's really a conspiracy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we read your parents were extraordinary ministers that night, and then we went back to your house for dinner afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And my dad told me not to get too attached.
Well, clearly here we are.
That's interesting because after that, I remember seeing you two together. Like you could not get a piece of paper between the two of you. And I think it's so wonderful that here's this. You have your own homes with your family. You have your parish family, and it's out of this family where both attend and spend and have their being that you meet and have the experience of serving God.
Yeah.
You served God from an early age, and as did you. Now here you are, just met, and you're back in the sacristy, back in the sanctuary, serving God together. What an amazing start to a relationship. God was never not a part of it. Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful.
And we were going to mass sometimes twice a weekend, so that we could, if he was serving a different mass than I was, then we were going to two.
I was just going to jokingly say that Diane and I, same exact story, totally different. Well, it's so unique. It's just a little bit younger. Yeah, no, it's your story and it's unique. And can you tell people, where do you go to meet your bride? The rectory, of course. No. How does that happen? Well, obviously, divine providence.
And apparently, little did we know there was back work that my father and my sister and they were talking to Father Jeremy
Of
about
course.
finding me a man,
Yeah,
and
right.
they did.
Well,
sort
and
of
you
kind of
know that was,
orchestrated.
yeah, and so not to discredit the efforts of persons involved in your
Mhm.
life who love you,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that it was done in a thoughtful, prayerful manner,
Oh, of course.
and that they all want, when you want the best for someone,
Mhm.
when you love somebody, you want the best for them. The best is heaven, and as now in this vocation, Kim, you are his way to heaven, and she is your way to heaven. So it's such a beautiful thing, and you're a great example to many of the faithful and the world. How many? What's the? How many is it? 2.
It'll be 2 years,
2 years,
September
yeah.
26th.
2 years, September 26th.
Which also happens to be the feast day of the North American martyrs.
Well, isn't
Which
that
is-
something?
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Kind of originally brought us together, and then
Mhm.
to get married on that day.
Mhm.
So
Well, you've got plenty of married life ahead of you. I think it's wonderful. I think it is great to share your story, and that's one of the reasons why we do this program at all. There's a lot of good things going on in the world. You too are one of those good things.
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
All right. What we'll do is close out with a prayer. Place all of this as we do with all things at the feet of Our Lady. So, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
Gracious God, we thank you for this time together. We ask for your blessing upon Kim and Travis and their marriage. Continue to help them to grow in their faith and in their love for one another and their love for you. And we ask all of this as we place our prayers and petitions at the feet of your mother. As we pray, Hail Mary,
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
This is Deacon Chuck Kelly for WQPH 89.3 FM, Catholic Radio, serving Shirley, Fitchburg, and the world. God bless you.
Have you been listening to the Deacon's Table? Aired every Sunday at 8 p.m. We just got this wonderful letter. Dear Deacon, I am Mary Lynch from Cormier, New York, Christ the King Parish. Kelly DeMille is my godchild and loving niece. She and Brittany did a great job on that program. You are very talented as an interviewer, asking good questions in a comfortable, relaxed way. And the show really gave good sound suggestions for starting family adoration in a parish. Our parish began family adoration about 2 years ago and meets bi-weekly on one night in the week. They use the 6:30 to 7:30 time slot. Our pastor begins the holy hour. After adoration time, the children lead the rosary, and one family provides music interludes. Keep up the great work on the radio show, Deacon Chuck. Our sentiments exactly. Tune in if you have not yet shared with Deacon Chuck and listen to his program Sundays, 8 p.m. on WQPH.